Hello and welcome to Finch Restorations, a show all about classic and vintage cars and bikes, our projects and their owners. So whether you're into high-end Concours restorations or resto-modding your classic daily drive, join me, Jay Devison, and our panel of experts who will share experiences and advice as we take a look into the world of vintage and classic motoring. Joining me tonight on the panel are members of the Finch team with a range of experiences which include motorsport, restoration and project management. And they are.
Hello, my name is Peter Roberts, and with my wife we're the owners of Finch Restorations. I'm an engineer with 40 years of experience in complex shipbuilding projects, both in Australia and overseas. And I have professional qualifications in both engineering and project management.
My name is Shane. At Finch Restorations I mostly do technical development and fault finding. I've been a motor mechanic for 20 years, working in all aspects of the trade, and I'm a keen land speed racer.
Hi, I'm Pete. I'm the paint and panel workshop supervisor here. I've got 32 years experience, 28 years working and managing in body shops, 4 years experience in restoration, and 1 year as Father Christmas.
Hi, my name is Molly Spalding. I'm one of the project managers here at Finch. On the side as well, I also do rally car racing, developing, building, anything in that scene really.
Well, there you have it. That's the panel. You might notice there's a change. If you know who it is, send us in a message and tell us who you think the change is. Pete, welcome to the panel. Your first time tonight. Pete's been with Finch for a long time, and he is really one of the key people, the backbone of the business. So it's great to have you here. We've listened to you, we've listened to all of your comments, and we have refined our format. What does that mean? More videos, more cars, more action, and just changing it up a bit. At the end of the night, let us know what you think, send in your comments, and we'll try and make this a more entertaining show that's going to be absolutely tailored to suit you, our audience. So we are live, so send in your questions now. Our first story tonight is about a 1976 Morgan V8 Superlight. They only built 19 of these from the factory, and they were intended to be a road-going, road-registerable race car. They have evolved for the past 40 years into all sorts of race cars, road cars, and we have one. We have one here that we've been restoring for quite some time. That's going to be our story tonight. So our panel here, this car's a little bit more modified. Shane, what have we done to it? Just a brief outline, what have we done?
We've enlarged the engine, we've put a more modern gearbox in it, we've repaired the rot and damage over the years, put bigger brakes and power steering on it effectively.
Now, we're going to start the pointy end with Pete. Panel, what have we done? How much of a journey has that been for us?
When we first pulled the car apart, we were looking at restoring the chassis. Once we actually stripped it all down and got it blasted, we realised that the chassis was past being restored. It wasn't going to be cost effective, so we've replaced the chassis. We ended up replacing 4 guards that were badly corroded and unusable. And we also ended up replacing some of the wooden framework on the inside of the vehicle itself.
It's been quite a mammoth task.
It has, yeah. It's been here a few years now.
So
yeah, but we're getting to the pointy end of it.
And it just looks sensational. So on that, let's go to the video. Join us afterwards. Sit back and enjoy. Great, that was a fantastic film. I hope you enjoyed it. That was quite something. The dyno. Shane, tell us about the dyno. What did we get? That's the big question.
Look, we got about 160 at the wheels. It's hard to qualify that figure, being such a lightweight car. It doesn't stick to the dyno.
Now that was horsepower, not kilowatts.
That's it,
Yeah,
old school horsepower.
That's old-fashioned, yep.
But it doesn't stick to the dyno particularly well. So yeah, it is a bit difficult to say exactly how much
So
power
it could
it
be
made.
something. Now tell me, so you can see the engine here. We've wanted to bring you the engine. That's what you've asked for, so we're now talking about cars and getting in there. Beautiful engine. Tell us what the engine is. It was in the video, but let's go over it again.
Okay, so it's a Rover 3.5 litre that's been
Yep.
bored and stroked out to 4.9. It's got a Holly Sniper fuel injection system on it, aftermarket cams, bit of tickling on the inside, and a 4-barrel manifold to suit with a programmed electronic ignition.
So you might, looking at this, you might think that we blinged it up, but that's actually pretty much as it was from the factory. The only things that are different to look at are the ceramic coating on the headers, probably a little higher polish on the valve covers,
absolutely.
and just a water jet blast to clean up the intake manifold.
Yep.
The interesting thing with the carburetors is now that is pretty much the way Holly's looked in the old world.
Yep. So
and that's just converted to a fuel injection.
This car came in. It had been converted to a Holly style carburetor previously. So
Yep.
we've actually used the manifold that it came with and just put the Holly injection kit on there. Then modified that aluminium air filter down.
And what
to
does
suit
that
the
mean?
bonnet.
What's that mean in real terms?
Well, when
Starting it up, driving,
when you
that sort of stuff.
when you turn the key in the morning and it's cold, it will fire on the first crank.
Yeah.
It's got temperature compensation, runs cleaner, smoother.
Yep.
And they do make good extra torque throughout the range.
Well, that's going to be the big question too. If I'm going to spend the money on that sort of upgrade, I'm going to get cleaner running, easier start, better driving, but does it equate to more horsepower too? Is it
does.
snappier at the lights? That's
Absolutely. Like initial throttle response is great. There's no lag. You don't have the bogging down. You know, if you've got vacuum secondaries or mechanical secondaries, you don't get any of that. You put the foot down and it just works.
That's power straight away.
And these fuel injection systems have also got the benefit that with modern fuels and cars, particularly carbureted cars that sit around a lot, we're finding a lot more fouling happening, jets being blocked, that sort of thing. The fuel injection systems don't suffer from that. Because the pressures are so high, it could blow any issues through.
And it's going to clean it. So, I mean, that's a fairly common thing for all of us with classic cars. We're going to drive it Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then we're going to be too busy on work for 3 months or whatever it is, and we're going to let it sit. So we're going to come back to it. We're going to hope that it starts up and gives us everything we want it to. That sounds like it's going to solve that problem for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It just adds that extra bit of reliability in it so you can enjoy it when you want.
Now, it's not for the purist, but for a daily driver, if you're resto modding, or if you do want to go for the purist but return it to original, how easy is that? Is it a bolt-on, bolt-off effect?
Yeah, absolutely. We can put a standard CD175 manifold back on this, which was the standard carbies for the time.
Yeah.
We actually haven't done anything that isn't reversible on this car.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because this is one of 19. It's very rare. And so everything that's being done as far as a modification, all the original components have been kept, I believe.
Absolutely, yep.
So it can be returned to original. So that's for the purists, so don't write in and complain about that. We are doing what the client has asked, but what we do is make recommendations about how we preserve the archaeological significance and importance of these cars. Tell me, we've also done gearbox and brakes. What have we done with the gearbox? Because that was the old 4-speed.
Yep.
Now we've gone to what?
Tremec T5. So super common gearbox from the mid-90s through to the early thousands.
Yeah.
They're in Camaros and Mustangs and Falcons.
And they're
all
pretty
sorts of things.
bulletproof, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been adapted. I mean, we've put these gearboxes in MGs, Sunbeam Tigers. The Mark II behind us has one done. It's
Well, actually, I know a bit about this. I put one in my 46 GMC pickup behind the old 250 engine, so they're a pretty good box. Fifth gear is an overdrive, so you're going to get longer legs on the freeway as well.
Absolutely.
The big question, you've driven it, is it neck snapping? Is it? We're going to have to see the chiropractor after. What's it like?
Look, this engine's built with more of a torque bias, so it's very punchy off the bottom end. It's still got fairly low gearing, being a British sports car of the 70s, and it doesn't weigh very much at all. It's well under a tonne, this car, and it makes it very sprightly on the road.
Well, there you have it. We've got,
keep your wits about you for sure.
so we've got under a tonne of weight. I think they're about 850 thereabouts, 250 plus horsepower, huge torque. This thing's going to be a rocket. And I think on that we need to go back to the panel.
Further information on the Morgan. We have had some questions in whilst that video was playing and we were discussing the further engine mods. Jade, are you ready for some questions?
Yes, I'm just going to refresh my whistle.
Oh yes, sorry.
Okay, great. Now, before we get into questions from you, our viewers, we're going to get back onto our usual track, and that is answering the most commonly answered questions we have. We deliberated a bit about what that question might have, and but we came up with one where I think is right, and that is, can you take on my half-finished project? And clearly we get a few of those inquiries. Somebody's taken off, started a project that's a bit more they can chew. Either it's over the top for them for their skills, or they've simply run out of time. What are we going to do? Will we do it? Who's going to start?
Well, yeah, of course we'll do it. I would say that a quarter of the projects here are probably that category.
Yep.
I haven't really counted them up. But yes, we've recovered projects from interstate. That's a bit trickier because if the vehicles are in pieces, then you can't just ask one of the major transporting companies to do that. So we'll send a couple of people interstate to collect it all. You need enclosed transport for that sort of thing. We bring them back, we catalogue what there are. We in that situation, we'd actually normally do a mock-up of the vehicle, because we need to understand what's working, what's broken,
What we've
that
got.
sort of thing.
What's missing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we need, what needs to be ordered.
Yes.
So yeah, we've got quite a good track record of doing that sort of work.
I think we've all been there though at some point.
Yeah.
Because we're all car people. We've all fixed cars. Some of us have spray painted their Falcons in their driveways and covered mum and dad's house with acrylic paint in when was it? What year? 70, 50?
It was
it was an early Falcon,
It must
wasn't
have been
it?
at least 10 years ago, mid-teens. Yeah.
So I suppose if you have a car that is half done, we're going to take it on. What are we going to do? Somebody's half done the panel work. Probably one of the typical things we get wrong when we start a restoration, and we don't know when we're new, and we've all been at that point. Pull the thing apart, put things in bags and boxes, and 3 years later trying to put it back together and you scratch your head. Storage and identification. Pete, I'm going to hit you with this one.
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do when we pull these cars apart?
We meticulously pull them apart. We photograph every part before we take it off. We photograph it after we've taken it off.
Yeah.
We catalogue it and we store it on the racks that you can see behind us here.
Yeah.
They may look a little bit disorganised, but if you start digging into them, they are actually usually fairly organised.
It's now a very sophisticated system that Finch have got.
And Peter, can I say, you also categorise them. In other words, what is the condition of them? Is it broken?
What work they need done to them.
re-chroming, stripping?
Yeah.
Now,
So
I've been out there and I've seen the labelling system you've got. Everything's recorded in a book. Everything's got a label on it. And even choosing the labels was carefully selected so that it didn't take off varnish surfaces or start corrosion on things. So everything that Finch Restorations have done regarding cataloguing and storing is really well thought out. What do we do? So what could the client expect at the end of that first period where everything has been catalogued? Can they come down and see it and see what's going on? What do we do?
yeah, any time they want, they're welcome to come in and have a look at their project. Often during business hours, our doors are open, and we welcome all customers to come in and have a look at any stage. We're more than happy.
Often once we've stripped the car down, that's a ideal time for the customer to come have a look, because we can, identify the issues and work through how they want to proceed with it.
Quite often we'll also know what's missing, and then we're giving them a call and saying, have you sure you don't have another box in your garage somewhere?
Yeah.
Well,
Which
we
quite
do
often
have,
is the case.
we do have a few like that. And we all put something here, and then someone comes in and helps us clean up our garage.
Or for extra
That's not
safekeeping.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Or
special
often we'll
thing
get a
goes
car
in.
in with extra parts, you know, like
Yeah,
there'll be
that's fun.
you know,
Yes, yes. Why do you have a brass 3/4 inch garden tap as part of the cooling system for the car?
yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I think we had a steam whistle came in with a motorbike at one stage.
There were some lawnmower engine parts
Yes,
as well
yeah, absolutely.
for one of the bikes. I can't remember. I won't say which one it was, and we're not going to point to the Harley Davidson engine there. But that's okay. Don't write in and complain about that. So we all have interesting bikes, or we all have interesting bits. Okay, so from there we go to cataloguing the parts. The client has come in. The project is half done. So we've talked about the storage. I'll get back to you.
Okay,
I was going to
sorry.
ask this. He started, or she has started, rust work. They bogged stuff up, they put some primer on it, and they painted it. Now they're feeling really proud of their work. That's a tough call, isn't it? Well, that's a real tough aspect.
That's actually the sensitive conversation I was going to mention.
Yes, okay. Well, what do we do?
Well, I mean, it really depends on where the job is going, what the end goal is, how far the client's got. But really, we would be inspecting it, hopefully with the client if they're there as well, so that we can show them what we found. And then sometimes it's a case of going back a couple of steps before we go forwards.
Yep.
It depends on the project, but that can be a bit of a sad conversation if someone's very proud of their work. But usually they'll see that the end goal is to have the vehicle that they want, and the best option for it usually is to do it the best way.
Some
from the
cars
beginning.
that come in primer are a classic example of that. They might have had some bodywork done 10, 15, 25 years ago. They've been sitting in primer ever since, and the customer's like, yep, we're ready to paint it, but it's been absorbing moisture over that time.
Yeah.
It's not sealed, We've got to put a modern paint over it that's going to stick on and not fall off. So
Now you can't
have to take it back.
guarantee a paint job if you do that.
No.
If you put your paint over someone else's work, you couldn't possibly guarantee that.
And I have also found with certain customers, when you bring them back in to have a look at their project after we've sandblasted and got it back to the bare roots, you'll be showing them the shoddy workmanship that's been done on previous repairs.
Yes.
Then you must remove your foot from your mouth because it's their repairs that you're pointing out to them.
Yes. But we are like the family doctor, though.
Yeah.
We can't dress it up. All we can do is be respectful and mindful of your project.
Look,
We're not here to pull the wool over your eyes, but at the same time, we have to be brutal, we have to be tough and honest.
there's no shame in having a go. I mean,
No.
Yeah,
we're,
of course.
We applaud that.
We've all done it.
we've all been there. We've all started somewhere, and there's an immense amount of satisfaction in, fixing something and looking at it and being happy with it. But
Yeah.
we're happy to help you out with however you want to go about that.
All right, so that's body. Someone's come in, they brought their pride and joy in, and storage, we talked about that. Body, we talked about that. Mechanicals. What I've seen over the years, and I'm probably guilty of it on my first car, was get all excited, pull the thing apart, rebuild the brakes, because that's really easy. I've got to flush everything and make them work, because that's really simple. Now I'm going to rebuild the engine. 12 years later, I've decided I've got the time to put it back together. What have we done wrong there? What's the mistake there?
Those seals are going to be in really great condition, aren't they?
Yeah. What's happening to the brake fluid? What's happened to the engine?
It's absorbing moisture, the brake fluid,
Yeah.
while it's sitting there.
Yeah.
So there is a correct order to do things in.
Yeah.
And brakes is probably one of the last things you should do, not the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're a novice, you tend to grab the low-hanging fruit and pick the easy things to do. And it does give you that sense of achieved
And
something.
Shane, engine. What's the problem with building an engine and sitting there for 10 years in a dusty garage?
Yeah, well, look, they will absorb moisture out of the air. Same with the brake fluid. You'll get, you can start to get, depending on how it's been put to bed, you start to get rust in the bores or rust in the bearings. If it's a white metal bearing car, especially, they hate sitting around like that. It leaches the zinc out of the material. And
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Also, it's important to stress, don't start with the mechanicals.
Yes.
You've got to get your foundations right.
Yeah.
The body needs to occur first. We've seen customers that have gone into their mechanicals first, and then they've realised that they've got a very poor body, and they've probably put their
Why are you looking at Matt where they're
time
saying
in the
that?
wrong place.
Slight tangent.
Very good reason.
We had I spoke to somebody a while ago who basically was looking at doing restoration, and they were going to get the trim done first, and they'd just never done a restoration before, didn't know where to start, and they're like, oh yeah, I know, I want to use this trimmer, so they were going to send it to their trimmer first, and I had to talk them through the process. So maybe that's something we can do as well if people need a bit of guidance with that sort of thing. Put
So,
a comment in.
pretty much-
Happy to talk.
If you've done a car, it's halfway through, you're lost, you're swamped, feel totally comfortable because many people have done it. Come and see us, just have a call, send us some photographs and we'll talk about it. Yes, we'll take on your half-done project. Yes, we will help you and guide you through that process. Even if it's only one aspect you want Finch Restorations to do, we will do the paintwork for you and you can finish off the rest. We will fix up those mechanicals and let you finish the rest, or we'll do the complete project. I think that's fairly safe to say. Is that right, Peter?
It's definitely, we are experts at doing three-dimensional jigsaw puzzles,
Yes. Yes.
and that's one of our
Yes.
niche areas that
Whilst
we
hopping
do.
on one foot.
We do the complete project here.
Yes.
I just think we missed an opportunity to introduce Ben.
Well, you're right.
Sorry,
and
it was my tangent that we went
no,
on.
that's great. We did, and you're absolutely right. We've had our first question in, and our first question was handed in from Ben IT, or Ben It. Ben, can you scoot across here and wave? There's Ben. Ben's going to look after absolutely everything for us. Hey, no, put the camera back on me. I'm the special one. Okay, so our first question is, and I don't know who this is from, but it sounds interesting. It's from Peter from Mount Spalding. I don't know where that is, but Peter, let us know where you are. Peter says, I have a 63 Trance Spitfire. When built, it wasn't fitted with seat belts. Can they be added now? And what are the options? Lap only, or is it possible to fit over the shoulder belts? Trance Spitfire. Panel?
Yes, it's possible.
Right, next question.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
look, some cars don't really have enough body structure to put traditionally put a lap sash belt in, but there are ways around that. You can either get seats that have got built-in sash guides, or you can build frames and structures into the body to stiffen it up in that area.
Case in point, MGBs,
Yes.
very similar to the Spitfire in their body structure.
Yeah. We've
That
done
white MG
Yep.
only recently. What did you do there?
what we reinforce on the pillars and put in
Yep.
some tough points. It's all been engineered correctly. We've put seatbelts into Mark IV Jaguars that required extensive amounts of extra steelwork added discreetly underneath the trim to bring the structure up to spec from an engineering point of view. But
Right.
you couldn't tell the difference apart from the fact there's a seatbelt on there.
And seat belts is probably one of the most common upgrades that we do, wouldn't it?
It's
To
probably the
have
most
vehicles
sensible
here.
one.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us want to see those, even just that sudden stop on a slippery vinyl seat and the person next to you, someone you love and cherish, slides forward and just has that, even if it's just a low impact at low speed and they just get hit, that's just not good. So seatbelts save lives. And in classics, we
And
can do
knows
it
it.
discreetly, and we can, in most instances, do it reversibly, so it doesn't necessarily compromise the value of the car.
It just came to mind too. Probably the biggest upgrades, or most common upgrades, are seat belts, brakes, collapsible steering columns, electric steering, or power steering,
Yes.
and of course engines.
The electric power steering. Now, this is a segue. Peter, I hope we've answered your question regarding the seatbelts, but I think we should just have a few minutes on the electric power steering. Most of you will see the silver grey Mark II Jaguar off to the right. That's been in the shop for quite a while. Beautifully restored car, resto modded, and one of my favourites. That's been fitted with electric power steering. Let's just take a few minutes. Shane, could you just tell us about that? What happened?
Okay. Well, electric power steering's been around for, it's been in OEM cars for at least 20, 25 years. It's a very reliable, discrete system. When we're putting it into early cars, it's beneficial in that you can normally adjust the amount of feedback you get from the steering, so it's not too light, not too heavy. They're often speed controlled. They'll plug into the speedo cable, so when you're driving around the car park, it's nice and easy to park, but it still feels solid and stable on the road.
So that's the easy power steering, EZ power
Yep.
steering. We'll do a plug. This is a great unit. We're not a commercial enterprise. We're doing this because we love this show. We love our customers. Easy power steering. It's from the Netherlands. It's a very sophisticated kit.
We're not agents. No.
We're not agents either. We just like what we do, and we've had good experience with it.
It's a good kit.
But
What's the fit like?
yeah, you effectively just replace the steering column. So you don't change the steering box. You don't add pumps to the engine. You're not adding extra hoses, fluid reservoirs, more belts. You just got to make sure we'll normally upgrade to an alternator from a generator to give enough power to run it. But yeah, they're very reliable systems.
Okay, great.
Another common upgrade is headlights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say no more. About
Yes. Well, even if we're just going from incandescent, requiring a flint and some gas to light it, to using a H4, just a halogen. What's again, Shane, you're our electronics guy. What's headlights? I think that's a good way. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, look, particularly some of the real early stuff, it's hard to get globes for now, so we'll often modify a bucket to accept a more modern globe. The more modern globes in moderate wattages don't use any more power than the early stuff, but they certainly put out a lot more light and they're a lot more stable. Less load on the whole wiring system. Is a good
Yeah, I think I'd like to emphasise too that we do authentic restorations,
Yes.
but these are sort of the safety areas that customers often ask us to upgrade.
What's at the composite? Are we doing half and half? Because you're right, we're not going to do every car because a large bulk of what we do is originality. So are we doing half? What's the ratio? Pete probably sees much of
I
it.
reckon about half the cars we do, we'd upgrade the lights.
Yeah.
You know?
And other things as well.
Yeah,
the brakes
well,
and stuff.
especially because a lot of our clientele are sort of, their eyesight's not as good as it used to be, especially when they're driving at night, case in point. So,
yeah.
you know,
And-
upgrading the lights, good
And
idea.
you're also, when you're on the road these days, you're competing against modern cars, and you know all the other cars around you've got much brighter lights.
Even just jumping from your normal everyday drive to then going into your classic, having that really big difference is a lot more noticeable.
Yeah.
So yeah, just bring it up to standard with what your normal drive.
What you used
So
to.
halogens has been the big upgrade for a long time. LEDs, we all know, and everyone will know about LEDs. You can get a myriad of LEDs for your tail lights and parks and what have you, but it's still not quite up to scratch yet for headlights, is it? Because we're a headlights and LEDs going.
They're starting to come onto the market now. A few Australian road standards legal LED bulb replacements. They'll usually come with a little controller box and clip into your standard lens.
So are we still got a way to go on those yet, do you think? Are they up to the standard of a decent LED?
Decent halogen? Yes.
Halogen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Whilst we have been talking about that, we have another question in from, which we've got a couple here. One of name I recognise from a recent, from last month. We'll talk about yours in a sec. That's a doozy, and I scratch my ear a bit because that's probably a more modern question. Let's go to Jim. Jim from Adelaide has a question for Peter. And Jim says, Peter, it's Christmas. You have a big budget. What classic car do you want Santa to roll down your chimney?
Oh,
What is it?
boy.
Great.
We had a customer in today who asked me, what fabulous cars do you have? And I don't know if I've said this in a previous episode, but we've got quite a menagerie of vehicles, but we've got very few which are road going. Most of them are donor cars, so...
Now, he does say budget's no issue.
Budget's no issue.
Your dream car,
My
daily
dream
driver.
car at the moment is a Bentley Special with Salchick guards.
Oh, okay.
Art Deco.
Yes, the one you pointed out
That's right.
recently.
That's my dream at the moment.
Okay, so everyone needs to possibly look that up and see what that looks like.
Beautiful.
But Bentley Special. All right, Jim, thanks very much. And perhaps, Jim, you can tell us what yours is. Send us in some comments. Tell us what your car is and your dream car, and perhaps we'll talk about that on the show this week or next week. Okay, we've got quite a few more. I'm going to get that one in a minute. This is interesting. John Martin says, thoughts on .5 brake fluid? Now, I'm presuming that's silicon, is that right?
Yep.
Depends
Sure.
on,
Yeah, it's look, it's
A couple of issues. We've got road use and we've got race use.
That's right.
We've got performance and we've got daily drive use.
Yep.
Let's talk about daily drive. That's probably
Daily
what half
drive.
our stuff is.
It's doesn't absorb the moisture that traditional brake fluid does. So particularly for a car that
Sits around a bit.
sits around a bit, it will definitely prolong the life of the brakes, your wheel cylinders and that sort of thing. Yeah, from that point of view, it's a good thing.
And what about performance-wise? What's the temperature range? I mean, brake fluid's got to absorb heat and dissipate heat quick. Is .5 silicon going to do the same thing in performance in racing?
I think that's probably more a question for you, Molly.
I don't know the specs off the top of my head.
What do you use?
I use .4.
Okay.
Just better than your average. I mean, most daily cars are using either .3.
So a
and
race
then-
grade.
Yeah, so it's a higher temperature yielding brake fluid. I would be hesitant to change to .5.
You've got to change the whole system. You've got to flush it out absolutely thoroughly. You can't have any of the old fluid left in.
Also, just tried and
I
tested.
think
not
that's the
as-
case. Is that
Yeah.
right, gentlemen?
Yeah.
And .4 is available everywhere.
Yeah.
If you need some, you just buy it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the jury's really out on what the performance and what the requirements are.
I think
for
the
silicon.
temperature rating is slightly high, but
Yeah.
honestly, you've maybe 100 degrees or something, but you've really got to be pushing your old
Probably. Yeah.
classic pretty
Yeah.
hard.
It seems pretty clear to me that we're going to have to get a camera in the back of Molly's car
Yeah. Yes, and see how hard
to
you
see
push
how the
that
performance
pedal.
goes.
Yeah.
The thing I think I like about .5 and that you mentioned, I picked up on that, it's not hygroscopic. It doesn't soak up moisture. You leave your classic sitting there, and if you've got 4 or 5 and you haven't been to one for a few years, and that restoration that's been waiting 20 years because you did the brakes first, .4 is going to turn into jelly very, very quickly, and you have to rebuild everything. .5 silicon is not soaking up the moisture, so quite possibly, theoretically, you should be able to leave. If you haven't driven the car for a year or two, it should be okay. Is that what we're thinking?
I mean, that's the plan behind .5.
Yeah.
One of the main benefits of it. So theoretically, yeah.
But look, all of that at the moment is a little bit of supposition. So before you use any .5 or make a transition, make sure you get advice from the manufacturers on the branding. Make sure you get perhaps come in and see us and we can talk about it and assess the situation with your particular project. Let's make sure that what we talk about tonight relates specifically to your project before you talk to us. I think we finished .5. Thanks, John. Okay, let's get on to Jeffrey's question. Jeffrey O'Bear, and I'm immediately liking this question. Okay, it would likely be hard to cost the help I need on my Volvo 1800E. Now, the 1800E was the estate. 1967 to 1972, 73. Jeffrey, perhaps you can fill us in on that. Now that's the car that came after the P1800, which is the one famously driven by Roger Moore in the TV series The Saint. Beautiful car. I'm not biased at
Did it
all.
have the E18 in it as well?
No, back then it was the 1961 was the first car, the P1800, built by Jensen under license to Volvo in England because Volvo didn't have the capacity on their production line at the time. They went back in December in '63 to produce them in Sweden. Beautiful car. So the question, do you have a typical hourly cost for resto and materials parts I could use as a guide? So the questions are, how much do we charge for our work? And how do we do our restorations and price our materials and parts?
Yeah, we have a range of different rates, whether it's for design, or if it's for mechanical assembly, panel shop, paint shop. So it's a basket of rates. Best bet there is to actually, give us an indication of what sort of work you want done, and send us an email with photographs of the project, and we'll give you some estimates.
It is a big question, and it's a bit broad. Jeffrey, if you could let us know, is it bodywork you're talking about? Is it mechanical? Is it electrical? Is it everything?
Or even just service work.
Yeah. The really great thing about that car is that Volvo in Sweden are still producing virtually every single component for the car. And shipping costs out of Sweden are very reasonable. Give us a call, because we can put you in touch with the right manufacturers and the right suppliers, and then we can help you fit them up.
Shane just raised a point there as well, that we also have our dyno shop at Woodside, do carburetor work there as well, which was what was seen in the video. With the,
yes, actually, perhaps we'll talk about that one next. We've got a hairy question. I'm not sure if it's for us or not. Let's have a go. Hello, Zane. Thank you for your question. Do we work with composites? And if so, any tips?
Well, Shane's our composite man.
Yes.
I presume you're not talking about wood and steel, which is the bigger area of composites that
Which
we do.
our
So
earliest version of that's the Studebaker Commander, which
Yes.
is wood and steel, and then our latest one is the Morgan composition. But I think we're talking. About composites as in aluminium, honeycomb, carbon fibre, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Say so.
We regularly do fiberglass work. There are a lot of sports cars from the 60s and 70s that were starting to get into that side of thing.
Half a dozen projects a year.
Yeah, and most of that tends to be fiberglass repair, or sometimes we can use it as part of our design process if we're...
You used on the Packard, you made a mock-up of the radiator surround.
Yeah, that's right, because then I was able to, cut it up how I like without damaging the original to get it in the right position. So we would focus mostly on repair work. We're a little bit adverse to manufacturing panels and that sort of thing in fiberglass, unless that's what was the original part.
We have done that recently though. The Land Cruiser roof.
Yep. So that was a repair.
Yeah, it began as a repair, although it has basically been a complete.
There was an FJ
remake.
40.
FJ 40.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they've got a.
So that roof's fiberglass.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So
Didn't
they're all
know that.
fiberglass. Yep.
Okay.
It's got a foam core in the centre, so the foam core had degraded quite a bit. So any repair work tended to escalate a little bit. But we bought that one back online now, so that's all good.
Right.
Been race car noses as well.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yes.
composites really...
Yeah.
But composites are a modern material, and Finch Restorations is about historics.
Yeah.
It's about pre-chrome bumper. We're chrome bumpers.
Yeah, but glass is coming in through the 60s and 70s, so it's...
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
fiberglass Corvettes, 1953, first
Mustang.
first
came in the
Corvette.
other day. That was all fiberglass bonnet boot.
Right, interesting.
Mustang Shelby.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Plus the a lot of the reproduced cars.
Yeah.
Especially Cobras, you'd bring them to us because everything underneath them is classic. It's in our ballpark.
Even 60s TVRs, Lotus 7s,
Yes.
Caterham type vehicles. It is a very sporty material from the period, we don't have any problem with it.
The carbon fibre of the last century.
Yeah, I mean even carbon fibre, we can work with it. Have done in the past. It's just not something that would be our usual go-to.
No.
Looks like you've got another bunch.
There are, and I was busily reading the questions and
Oh,
trying to
while we were
interpret
talking.
them and ignoring everyone on the panel. My apologies. Okay, let me get myself sorted for just a minute. Okay, so I've got a note here. Dream cars mentioned. Jeffrey, 1970 still coupe injected 2 litre. I think that's, Jeffrey OB, you're talking about your Volvo 1800E. So if it's a 1970, then yes, that's the 2 litre 8-bolt crankshaft Volvo engine, bulletproof engine. In fact, the Guinness World Record for the greatest distance travelled on an engine is from a 1965 P1800 Volvo. It hit over 2 million miles. And it was owned by Phil Irving in California. He bought the car new, and he only passed away last year. Sensational car. He pulled the engine apart at 600,000 because he thought it needed a rebuild, then reassembled it because it was still within tolerance. So, brilliant car, brilliant engine, 2 litre injected. That's the Bosch fuel injection system. We can get about nearly 200 horsepower. That's not unusual for those cars. So if you want the thing to fly, then bring it to Finch. We can sort it out for you. Peter, your 63 Triumph Spitfire. I've got a note here. Dream car. You're absolutely on the money. That's great stuff. Okay, Zane, thank you for your question about composites. Right, we've got a few more. We have one from Nat D, the Adelaide Hills, and from Michael from Richmond. Let's go on to Nat's question. Hi guys, great show. Thank you. I have a 74 Mini with some rust in the seals and wheel arches. I'd like to get the car restored and fix the work, some of it himself, he says. Not quite sure about the rest of your question, but he wants to know, can we do half the work for him, some of it, and then he takes it back and do some of the other work, and then do a little bit, bring it back. So perhaps Nat, if you could send through just a little bit more clarification on that question. But let's just interpret it as that he's got a car, wants to do some work, and wants us to do some work, and we just work with him. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. We have customers that want to be real hands-on with their project, but
Yep.
they do understand their own limitations.
Yeah.
So they might strip it all down, they might organise getting it sandblasted, and then bring it to us because they don't have a welder or they
Got an
can't weld
example?
themselves.
What's a good example of that we've done in the past?
Probably the Fiat Dino.
Yes.
The
Yes.
owner actually made a start on that.
And
We've
the
also
Rover.
got sorry,
The Rover.
the Rover,
Yep.
also the XR.
Yeah, it's
you know.
pretty common.
Yeah, it's very common. It keeps the cost down, and it
Yeah.
also makes the person feel more involved in the restoration
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes they just want to, cherry pick the real knobbly problems for us to sort out for them, and that's
Yeah.
fine. That's what we're here for.
That's going to could be the difference between a restoration taking 3 years and taking 20 years because of that big roadblock. It's either a psychological thought that you just can't do it, or a real barrier because you just don't have the tools and the equipment.
Yeah.
But okay, look, Nat, thanks very much. That's a great question. I have one more, and I think that's going to be pretty much the end of our time. Michael from Richmond. I'm restoring a 1930 Packard Super 8. And the the fuel pump is cracked and crumbling away. Can we fix it for him? That will be the AC
Delco one.
Delco
yeah.
pumps. And we've got a few of those. They're pretty common. They're on quite a few vintage cars.
Yeah, some of the AC pumps from that era are very, very hard to get the base body part for. They did suffer from a bit of metal leaching and cracking over the years, so they've all kind of failed. We'd probably need to see the pump, but we have a few sources for some of them and some other fairly period options that we can apply to help them out too.
Now, this is where we got onto a little while ago, and it wasn't Santa bringing us presents. It was 3D scanning and printing of these parts. That
Yep.
sounds like a prime candidate.
Yep, absolutely. As long as there's enough of the pump left that once we've scanned it, the computer wizards can, redraw all the cracks in the right, smooth them over and redraw the right picture, then
Yep.
yeah, we can have it recast from a plastic print.
Now, you had some 3D job printed. Now, that was some suspension components.
Yeah, some
What was that for?
some accessory shock absorbers for a 28 Morris Cowley. Very, very rare components. The customer has several Morris Cowleys and only one set of shock absorbers, and he wanted them on all of them. So we had them scanned, repaired some of the wear on them digitally, reprinted them out, and then we can take them to the foundry and have them cast in steel or grey iron, whatever we require.
So is there a compromise there of any? I'm sure that a lot of our viewers will probably be wondering, especially those who don't know about 3D printing, possibly there's still a little voodoo in it, from the point of view of many restorers. Are there any drawbacks? What should we be looking for? What are the problems?
It's not necessarily a very straightforward process. You don't just put the part in, click go, and a plastic one pops out the other end. There is quite a lot of digital work that needs to go into it. So if we are going to go down that road with a part, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be a very rare part, something that's unobtainable or whatever, to really make it worthwhile.
On the subject of Packard, we have also scanned the entire body and the chassis of the Packard here. I know it's off the topic of the component level.
It's a good segue,
but
because that's the 29 Packard.
That's right.
29, okay.
Yeah, so it's very close. So Shane's actually, we have Andrea is actually doing the 3D modelling.
Yes.
And meanwhile, so at the same time, Shane's actually modelling with two lots of wireframe, one analogue, real world, which is what Shane's doing, and Andrea is doing it in the digital world to compare the results.
Yeah.
Or
So
inform the results across is a better way of saying it.
So basically we can, if there's a part that's unobtainable, technology has come to our rescue. We can scan these, have them scanned, correct the image digitally, and then cast the part in the traditional way, because that printing process creates a pattern for us now.
Yeah, well, that's right. And sometimes, depending on how big the part is, there's always a certain percentage of shrinkage. So if you were to take just the original part to have that recast, it will end up smaller than the original. So we can inflate the size of it on the computer at the correct rate for the material we're going to cast with, which will get us back to a nominally correct size.
Nice. We are starting to run out of time. We're a few minutes over. Tonight's format was intended to go for 45 minutes. We've now gone for about 50. We've got one more question, and I think we're going to answer it. So Jack Broad has asked a question. If the part cannot be sourced to finish a project, would you wait for an original equipment part to pop up, or reproduce manufacture in-house? Well, that very much tied into what we just said. Are we going to wait? The question is, are we going to wait, or are we going to make something? That's depends on your patience, and depends on the
car,
and where
And
we're
the
up to in
customer.
the project.
Yeah.
Lots of things.
That's a big question. So the answer is yes and no, sometimes and probably. Look, I think that's all we've got time for. But you want to say something else?
Sorry,
What is
just one very quick point. We do usually start our parts procurement process at the beginning of the project for that particular point.
Yes.
So we have the most amount of time that we have, or can have, to find that part. And then if we're getting to the pointy end and we still haven't found it, that's when we'll put in the time, the knowledge, resources into recreating it.
And that works when you've got an 18-month, 2-year restoration project.
Yeah.
I'd also like to, great answer, Molly. We also have customers who like to do their own research.
A great cost saving.
Yeah.
Yes, we're ambivalent whether the customer does it or we do it. You've got to recognise that it does take a lot of human effort to find, and it could take hours or days to find that $2 part.
Yes.
So it's that's where
I think we've all felt that pain over the years. That is a tough one. Great. Any advances? Going once? Going twice? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on our third episode, and thanks for your patience whilst we've been evolving our new format. I think it's gone really well, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, it's
Do you
been
think
fun.
so?
It's great.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone, send in your comments. Let us know what you think. We're going to evolve this thing to make it work for everyone. So let us send in more information. We'll see what we can do. So again, if your question wasn't answered tonight, go to our website where you'll find our phone number and our email address. Send us emails, give us a call, send your questions in. We'll be only too happy to talk to you. We'd love to hear from you. So join us next time as we
Sorry for interrupting, but you must say Merry Christmas to everyone, and so this is our last show for the year.
Oh, right. Yes, so Merry Christmas to everyone from Finch Restorations. Have a safe and happy break. And this is our last show for the year. Join us in January, where we will return monthly, and we will let you all know with an invitation through YouTube and Facebook. Look out for it. In the meantime, send us the emails, send in more questions. We'll talk to you all the way through. So remember to subscribe, and to share the link with your friends. So from me, it's good night, and from the panel, good night, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.